Hi again, second grade. Welcome to reading lesson 7. Yesterday during reading, we really thought about the author's point, what the author thinks or feels about the topic. Do that with me. Ready? What the author thinks or feels about the topic. That's right. And what did we look for to help us understand the author's point? Can you say it? That's right. Reasons. The author uses reasons to support or prove their point. Today, we're going to really think deeply about these reasons because we not only want to be able to find the reasons, but we want to know what the reasons do. Today, we're going to think about how reasons can explain why, explain how, describe more, and give examples. Our goal for today is to say, I can describe how authors use reasons to support the point. In Module B, we practiced thinking about reasons by using this chart. What do reasons do? Let's go back and look at each type to help us remember what reasons do when they're supporting an author's point. First, reasons can explain why. So go like this and say explain why. Yeah, reasons can explain why something happens or why the author has their point. We can look for those types of reasons by asking ourselves why and using the reason to answer that question. Reasons can also explain how. Usually this means how something happens or steps in a process how to do something. So if a reason is telling you how to do something or is telling you how something happens, then it's explaining how. And I like to go like this across my fingers. It helps me remember. So go like this and say explain how. Reasons can also describe more. Authors will sometimes use reasons that describe their topic so that you can get a good picture of it. You know these reasons are doing that if you see size or shape. You can use your 5 senses, like what does it look like, what does it sound like, what does it smell like or feel like, or if the topic is food, what does it taste like? Or numbers, it tells you how many of something there are. If you see those details, those describing details, then you know the author's reasons are describing more. I like to go like this, describe more, because it reminds me I'm looking and I'm feeling and describing. And finally, the author might give examples. When an author gives examples, they're just giving you an idea of something that represents the whole thing. For example, these are all jellyfish. These are examples of different types of jellyfish. So you can look at those and know what types of jellyfish there are. They're examples of jellyfish. In this illustration, these are examples of good citizens. It shows you what good citizens might do, how they might be, and so that's an example of what a good citizen might look like. It's not all good citizens, but just an idea of one type of good citizen. Authors use all different kinds of reasons to make their point, and as smart readers, we are careful to think about the reasons and really think about what the author is doing. One way that we can keep track of this in our reader's notebook is to use a code. So every time we don't have to write explain why or explain how. Here's a code that I like to use that maybe you want to try. I'll put a W if the author is explaining why, an H if the author is explaining how, a D if the author is describing, and an E if the author is giving examples. Let me show you how I do this in my notebook before you try it on yours. Here's my notebook from yesterday. Remember, I wrote the point at the top, jellyfish are simple but wonderful, and then I looked back in the text to find the reasons the author used. We're going to look back at those reasons and think, what does the reason do? Explain why, explain how, describe more, or give examples. So let's take a look at my first reason. Jellyfish have 2 choices, to go up or go down. I need to ask myself, how is the author using that reason to support the point that it's simple? Well, in this case, the author is explaining why. Why are jellyfish simple? Because they can only go up or down. I wrote the letter W next to my reason to help me remember that that's what the author is doing. It's explaining why. And later on, she explains why they can go up and down, because they don't have a brain. So I coded that reason with the letter W to help myself remember. Let's take a look at my next reason, different ways to sting. So the author used the reason there were different ways to sting, but what did she do in the text? Let's go back and see. Some jellyfish sting gently, and then she told us that some are so powerful, and then she told us about the Australian box jelly. She gave us an example of a type of jellyfish that stings powerfully to help develop her reason. So I'm going to code that with an E because she gave me an example of the different ways that they sting and an example of a jellyfish that has a powerful sting. Our next reason was they look like trash. And so I'm going to look back at this page and think, how did the author develop that reason to show that the jellyfish are simple and wonderful? Well, it says they look like plastic trash floating in the sea, and it kind of uses that describing word, right? Looking like plastic trash. I can really get a picture of plastic trash in my head. So the author is describing what they look like. On this page, we found the reason that some grow their own food. Look back at the text. It tells us how that happens. They've eaten small bits of algae. They grow more inside their body by sitting in the sun. So how do they grow their own food? They eat small bits of algae and sit in the sun. That means that on this page, the author was explaining how. So I write an H next to that reason. And finally, the author said that they were beautiful and elegant. And so what does the author do to show us they're beautiful but elegant? Let's look back at those pages. It says they are as big as basketballs with long red tentacles. And on this page it says they look like a blizzard of snowflakes. Do you see some describing words in there? I do too. That means the author was using describing to help us understand that jellyfish are beautiful and elegant. So I'm going to put a D. Did you see how I went back into the text and I thought, is the author explaining why something happens, explaining how it happens, describing it using describing words, or giving examples? And then I coded each of my reasons with a letter to show what that reason was doing. I want you to try it out. On the next Nearpod slide, you're going to see this Draw It slide. Here's an example of one of the reasons that you shared yesterday that the author was supporting the point. Shaped like a bell with at least one mouth and tentacles. That was supporting the point that they are wonderful. But how does that support the point? What is the author doing here? Is she explaining why something happens, explaining how it happens, describing more about the jellyfish, or giving an example, like a type of jellyfish? Go ahead and head to the next Nearpod slide, and I want you to code this reason. Give it a W, H, D, or E. You can use the typing tool, or you can use the drawing tool just to draw it. Head to the next Nearpod slide and try it out.